Ahoy mateys, welcome back to my channel. Oxford and Cambridge results came out just a few days ago, and I've posted a few of my thoughts and advice for both those who did get in as well as those who didn't on my Instagram as well as on YouTube as a community post. Today, I am joined by a very special guest on my channel, Phil, and we're going to give a little more advice for those who did get into Oxford or Cambridge this year. So, Phil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Shavani. I'm Phil. I graduated having read law at Pembroke College. Then after that, went and qualified as a lawyer. And after that, then founded an edtech startup called EasyA, which I'm now working on full time. But really just giving tips on the whole process and really helping students with any questions that they have about applying and about studying in general. So really thrilled to be on board, sort of talking about this today. And thanks for having me on your channel, Shabani.
Our pleasure to have you, Phil. So I think without any further ado, let's just jump straight right into our advice we have to give. So I think we've kind of tried to segment this video into two bits. So let's first focus on before final exams. So this period of time where you've perhaps received your Oxbridge offer and it's still a conditional offer. So you still have to do your final exams and get the conditions for your offer. So regarding that, I think, Phil, do you want to share your first piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, my first piece of advice would really be just to understand your offer. Like the first time when I received it, I was actually, I wouldn't say taken aback, but I didn't really understand exactly what was required because I got an offer of two A stars and one A. And then they also sort of said, okay, you need to get your A stars in either one of these two subjects, and the A you can get in a third one. So I'd say actually just understand what you need to do to meet that offer, because unlike people who might have applied to US universities, the offers for Oxford or Cambridge are conditional. So you can't just flop and then come down with a serious case of senioritis unless you've reapplied after taking a gap year and you already have your results. So generally, if you have got your offer, it's going to look something like if you applied to Cambridge, probably for sciences, two A stars and an A, and then humanities, one A star and two A's. For Oxford, one A star, two A's, and then humanities, probably triple A. But that's just an average. And so sometimes offers can be higher and they can also be lower. And like me, they might specify which subjects they actually want that A star in. And if you do four A levels, then that might also include a fourth one too. And then some subjects are going to throw in a nice extra requirement, like I guess STEP for maths. So I just say make sure that you understand what you need to do to make that offer. And then you can understand, obviously, having taken a break to celebrate, what you actually need to do then to make sure that you meet that offer in the summer. And of course, after you have got your offer, make sure that you do accept it via UCAS. Imagine if you missed your offer because you forgot. I'm sure that somebody's done that before. So yeah, biggest thing I'd say is just to make sure that you understand what your offer is actually requiring.
Thank you, Phil. Now, moving on to a quite interesting topic. I think as soon as Oxbridge results come out, all the students get really excited, and a lot of these groups become created on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and literally every other social media platform you can imagine. So, Phil, what are your thoughts on joining offer holder groups before final exams?
To be honest, I'm not totally sure about that one. When I look at it, like on the one hand, I'd say don't do it. Like, do you actually want that extra pressure of becoming friends with people you really want to go to university with and you're hoping to go to university with? But then again, you've got that extra weight, right, of exams. You need to get that offer because it's conditional. But then again, when I was actually applying, when I had received my offer, there were other people in my year who did have those offers and for the same subject. And so in a certain sense, I think it maybe did give like a little support network. You feel like you're all in it together. You're giving each other tips. Like, for example, maybe they've got particularly difficult offers. Maybe you have a similarly difficult offer, or maybe you have to do a specific subject test and you can like share notes and you're all motivated to meet those offers. So I'd say that on balance, if you join a group, if you can join one, whether that's at school or maybe via like a Discord server or a WhatsApp group, I personally, looking back, I would actually probably join it, to be honest. But Shabani, you might have other ideas on that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand what you mean. I feel like there are definitely pros and cons of joining some groups. If I remember correctly, I only joined these groups after I received my final exam results. So that was after my offer was finalized. And as you said, I think it's definitely some additional pressure joining these groups before your offer is finalized. And I personally think after your exam results are out, that's when everyone's really thinking about university and getting excited. And I feel like you have more mental space to just be excited and think about that. So maybe most of the conversations that are most relevant to university life happen only after like exam results are out. So by joining these groups a bit later, I personally don't think you're going to be missing too much. So I would suggest maybe holding off a bit and joining it after your offer is finalized, just so you have that extra peace of mind. And touch wood, like in case something goes wrong, I feel like it'll be less pressure and just less of a disappointment.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's probably nothing more disappointing than joining that group, missing your offer, and then sort of being stuck there. But yeah.
So now let's move on to after you receive your final exam results, and that is when your offer is finalized. Phil, what do you think about having that long list of pre-reading? And I think you did the law course, am I right? So
Yeah,
how was that
exactly.
for you? How much reading did you do before you actually joined university?
I mean, that reading list was absolutely massive. Like, yeah, it was really, really big. And I'm sure it's similar for lots of other courses as well. There's just so much that you can read and just a massive rabbit hole. There's like pre reading, they might have stuff that they label as required, stuff that's recommended, and then even more stuff that you could go ahead and do. So, personally, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. There are people who won't do a thing of it, and those who will absolutely read every single piece that they're given and more, and then answer like every topic question, every problem set, and then take notes on it all as well. I don't think that it has much of an effect, actually, though, on how you're actually going to do on the course. If anything, the reading might make you feel like you're totally going to fail because you'll get so much, it's going to be so complicated. But in reality, when you actually get to university, you're going to have the whole teaching system there to support you, like your supervisors, your lecturers, and everything else. So I think my advice would be to do some of it so that you can at least be relatively on top of things when you start, because the beginning is really, really hectic when you're starting term. Like you're getting to know your college, you're getting to make friends, you're figuring out like, I don't know, where you can even do the laundry, stuff like that. So you don't necessarily want to be wondering about, oh, how am I actually going to do my reading on top of that, especially like in your first couple of days. So I'd say, go for it. If you can, do a little bit, but don't worry about completely mastering everything. I think, Shavani, you mentioned before that actually you didn't do a thing. You were in like that segment.
Yeah, I was definitely in that group of people who didn't do a thing. I think things were a little bit different for me because I was an international student, and going to university is a big change for all of us. So that summer, I really just wanted to spend all the time that I could with my friends and family. And because I'm doing the natural sciences course at Cambridge, rather than pre-reading, we had this course called the STEM Start. And it was actually really intense. Like they gave us weekly stuff to do, and like we had to submit work, and we got like feedback on it. And because you're done with your final exams, but you're waiting for university, so everyone's just really anxious and like trying to do their best in all of these courses. And I remember literally not completing the course before I joined university. And I was so stressed out for my first director of studies meeting because I thought he's going to ask me, why didn't you complete it? And you're the only one who hasn't completed it. But he never really asked about it. And even though I didn't complete it, I was completely fine in my first entire term. Sure, I would have maybe been a little more comfortable with the math to start off with, but you really do pick up things more faster than you expect in the first week, even if you go the entire summer without doing a bit of math. Like you don't tend to forget those things as easily as you might expect. So I think, as you said, if it's absolutely essential, obviously try and do it. If it's recommended, go at your own pace. I think you know your priorities best and just make a value judgment on that. And I think that kind of brings me on to my next point of try and think of non-academic things you want to do that summer. Because obviously, if you're going to Oxford and Cambridge, the next 3 to 4 years of your life are going to be very academically intense, to say the least. And you're going to find it a bit hard to carve out the time that you perhaps want to do all of the things that you love in terms of hobbies and interests and just pursuing passions outside academics. And I would say that summertime before university is perhaps one of the best times in your life you would get, to just explore life and just travel as much as you can, volunteer in your local community, pick up a new hobby, read more books, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, magazines, whatever you want to, and just do all of the things you thought you'd never had time in school or that you think you won't have time for at uni. Because I think that in between period after high school and before university is such a golden opportunity because you have so much free time and you're contemplating life and thinking about your goals for the next 3-4 years of your life, but also take time to rest and relax and just set out your priorities and I don't know, just think about your identity and the things that you want to achieve at university. I remember actually going on lots of nature walks with my friends, doing a lot of at home baking, getting into HIIT workouts, and becoming vegan the summer before university. So now when I look back, rather than being super stressed about university, I have all of these things that I loved doing that summer. And exploring such new things will not only diversify your interest, but will also make you just a more confident person and will be a nice conversation starter when you do come to uni and you're anxious about making friends. It just gives you some extra bits to talk about and hopefully connect with more people. Speaking of new experiences, I actually signed up to be a tutor on EasyA, which is the platform that Phil co-founded. And it was genuinely a great experience because obviously I didn't want to get too much into academics before summer, but EasyA was a great way for me to be in touch with math, but also give back to a community where I could help other students learn. And the app is so fun, Phil, I must say. It really does. It kind of is a bit addicting, I must say. It's really fun to see that you're helping students learn, but then you also have benefits like you get points and you get to receive the sort of feedback that they have of you as teachers. And yeah, I think it's just a great way of like best of both worlds, volunteering and not forgetting math. And I'll definitely leave a link down in the description box below for anyone who does want to become an EasyA tutor. So, because I think it's a great initiative. Anything
Yeah,
you want to add,
exactly.
Phil?
It helps you not forget your maths over the summer.
Yeah.
Off the back of that, you can do lots of work over the summer and make sure that you've done all the reading. But as Shivani said, like when you actually go to university, you're going to end up feeling like you're behind anyway. I think even if you have done everything, there are always going to be some people who are just somehow can pick up things faster. I don't know, maybe they absorb the reading more quickly. And so I think when you do go, it's important to have that sort of in mind. Like you won't necessarily always be at the top. You might even be feeling like you're at the bottom. But I think the way that it's set up is that even if you haven't come in with the same base as you feel other people have come in with, like you can go ahead and ask your supervisors for support. You're going to be going to the same lecturers. And as long as you stick to it, you can definitely just keep up. And I think one of my directors of studies once said at the beginning, when everybody was like feeling a little bit stressed, he said, look, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Like, you're going to have to try and get to the end of the year and just keep on top of things. And I think that that's the main thing. Even if when you start or even like a couple of weeks in, you feel like you're super, super behind, you can just keep going. And as long as you are on top of things, as long as you don't get sort of totally overwhelmed by it, it ends up being manageable. And I think that's the big thing. Like it's going to be really, really tough, but it's manageable. And I think that separating those and making that distinction was really, really helpful for me, and also hopefully will be for people who are just joining as well. But yeah, I think that would be my main takeaway. Not sure about you, Shalvani.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the point about asking for help, Phil, because I feel like most people who do end up getting an Oxbridge offer, I think it's quite a valid assumption to make that school has been relatively easy for them and perhaps not so challenging. And I think coming from that sort of environment, we're so used to tying our sense of identity to our sense of academic achievement or just proficiency. But coming to uni can be a bit of a shock in that sense, especially Oxford or Cambridge, I think, because as you mentioned, you're finally going to be in a class where you're not perhaps going to be the first or even average for that matter. You might find yourself at the bottom many times. And I think it's really important to escape that sort of, I think, that ego trap that we find ourselves in, thinking that we don't need to ask for help and we can figure this out by ourselves. Because honestly, life is so much easier at Oxbridge when you do reach out for help because people are always there to help you, but you need to reach out. And I think that sort of shift, no matter how easy it is to talk about, I think one does have to experience it and go through that. But as you mentioned, I think it's definitely advisable to be mentally prepared for that. And yeah, tell yourself that it's not going to be easy as it might have been before to stay at the top. And I think it's important to just focus on staying afloat initially and try and like rechannel your love for learning and curiosity, because that's going to take you much further than constantly wanting to stay at the top at university. That sort of brings me on to the next point, where university is going to be a big change from the type of high school environment you're probably used to. Most of us are going to be moving away from home. Some people like me, if you're international students, are going to be moving to a whole different country, a whole new part of the world. And you're going to be meeting a lot of people who you've probably never met before, and they're going to be very different to the types of people that you're probably used to interacting with. Now, big changes always tend to throw us off, and despite adapting to all of these academic difficulties, you might find yourself struggling with social difficulties or culture shock or homesickness or whatever external experiences that you might be going through. And I think because of this, it's really important to take that summer out before university to figure out the types of habits and routines that calm you and bring you peace. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much turbulence is going on around you, you need to be able to find a type of method and like activities that could like bring you back to your center and kind of root you down, because otherwise you're just going to constantly be uplifted by that's happening around you, and it can be very, very chaotic. So the more you practice such routines when you are feeling mentally stable and emotionally stable, the easier it will be to access such practices and routines when things around you are not going so smoothly. For example, I always used to do yoga at home. And when I moved to the UK, I found myself completely absorbed by homesickness. It was something I didn't even think that I was going to go through, but it just completely caught me off guard. And I was so glad that I had that kind of yoga routine in my toolbox, because I was easily able to convince myself to do that every day because I knew that it was going to benefit me. And I think that was like the top thing that genuinely helped me come out of it. Like I used to go on walks every day, I used to do yoga every day. And that was the only thing that kind of kept me going in those tough initial few weeks. So unless you have that kind of thing in your mind, and unless you're used to channeling into that sort of routine, it's going to be really hard for you to pick up something new in the heat of the moment when things aren't going so well. So I think it's really important to create and build healthy habits and understand the power of habits and having a routine, because they can really ground you in times of difficulty.
I think just to add to the habits bit, Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. And I think that applies also sort of to the academics. Like if you get yourself into good working habits, it just becomes so much more manageable, sticking maybe to a set of deadlines, or even if you don't have a deadline, just trying to set some that you can try and work towards. And I think that is super important. And yeah, just to chime in as well on what you said about yoga and getting into some sort of routine. For me, it was sports. So if you are doing like sports or team sports, I think that's just something really nice that you always have just to fall back on. Like it's not something even that you just have to sort of grind towards. As if you've got a team, if you can become part of a team sport as well, I think that team will be a nice distraction for you when you don't necessarily have to do work, or even if you have work, just something that you can turn away towards. You've got to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to that training session, and it's just something which is going to keep you going. And you've got that team who aren't necessarily people who are doing the same subject as you as well, and you can talk about a totally different thing. It's just about changing that context and getting into a different sort of reset mode.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of build on that, I think especially towards the end of high school and throughout university, we get sort of caught in this rat race where we want to constantly be more productive, more efficient at studying. But one thing that I've tried to remind myself is that health can't be compartmentalized. So if I want to be intellectually healthy and be able to do well at uni, I need to be physically healthy and mentally healthy and emotionally healthy. So stuff like yoga and sports and what we previously consider as extracurricular activities are actually so tightly intertwined with our academic performance. And I think the happier and more just generally healthy you are overall helps you be a better student at the end of the day. So I think it's really important to not consider extracurricular activities as a waste of time or something you're not going to prioritize at uni, because as Phil said, this is a marathon you're going to be running. So it's really important that you're able to create sustainable habits rather than what's going to give you short-term productivity and short-term efficiency. Because trust us, you are going to burn out if you're going to be reliant on that.
Exactly. The Latin phrase is mens sana in corpore sano, healthy mind and healthy body.
Precisely. So that's the end of our video today. I really hope that some of our advice resonated with you and hopefully gives you something to think about in these quite a few months you have, I think, before university. So do take time to consider these bits of advice and, yeah, hopefully try and implement that in your life. Thank you so much, Phil, for being on my channel today. It was lovely hearing your insights. And of course, I feel like you've exited the whole university bubble. So, of course, I'm sure these learnings kind of just continue throughout life. And yeah, I think they're applicable wherever. We
Yeah.
will be doing a video on Phil's channel as well. So please go do check that out. And yeah, Phil, anything you want to say?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shalvani, for having me.
Thank you.